Hey there, Dave Paulides, Can-Am Missing Project. This is copyrighted edition for our video page. On that side of the river is Glacier National Park. Over here is U.S. forest land. And this is the Flathead River. And it is a gorgeous sight today. It's been about 50 degrees here the last several days. And then last night dropped down to 25 and it snowed about 5 inches. It's been real warm. And the snow's been melting off fast, so let you enjoy the view here. Keep your eye on the sandbar behind me. You might see some wildlife. So what I'm going to do first today is read to you some interesting emails I had. And first one says, I've always been interested in your criteria of weather changes and water sources. I think it's one of those key points that really narrows this issue down, at least in North America cases. I've sent you a message before. As before, please do not use my name. I won't. In the region of the Great Lakes, there's a lot of shared history between indigenous nations. A long time ago, many of us lived by clans that had arrangements with other allied clans, so that travel throughout the area to visit family and friends or even to hunt wouldn't result in territorial conflicts. Eventually, many of these clans began to solidify these alliances through marriage and ceremonies, forming into larger organized nations. Long story short, my nation is from the western side of the lakes. We have many stories about creatures, portals, etc. With some indigenous nations talking about these things as taboo, but in my culture, we always talked about them in depth. Our story is about a dog-killing creature best described as having a hyena-like shape and similar qualities. Slipped through one of those portals and became stranded in our world till we were able to kill it and inspect it. It was said to have terrorized camps at night, killing and eating the native dogs for weeks. They never saw another creature like it, and ancestral stories talk about portals. So it was the most logical conclusion. But what concerns me, and why I thought to write this letter, are the elements of weather and water. In our stories and understanding of what is North America, we coexist with nations of every kind. Bird nations, human nations, plant nations, wolf nations, spirit nations. Not all of these are good to humans. One of the oldest and most feared being the nation of the underwater panthers. Yeah, underwater panthers. To us, these creatures are greedy and like to hoard all the copper in the area, and will and have killed many humans they come across. They are from water, lakes, rivers, but can go up on land, steal people, eat people, etc. They have the same intelligence as human beings and truly hate us, though they are stories of some who become sympathetic and help humans. But in general, their culture, humans are despised and treated as prey. The greatest enemy are their thunderers, like thunder with an ERS. To some cultures related to thunderbirds, and to my culture, Eagle's clan. Like heaven and hell, they fight to suppress each other, the thunderers being on the side of the creator God and the panthers on the side of the underworld. Many times when I watch your videos, I wonder if perhaps the people near water who have been taken and then found after a storm, did the thunderers fight back the panthers and retrieve the body of the soul of the person from the panther's world? It is very in line with our understanding of the thunderers, retrieving someone even if passed, and placing them where they will be found, so the remains can be properly buried with dignity instead of eaten by the enemy. Just a native's 2 cents based on my own culture's understanding of the area. Be well. Thank you for that. And I'm somebody who is a big believer in native culture and their stories. They were on this land, occupying it hundreds and hundreds of years before we were ever here. And their belief of our ecosystem needs to be understood. Remember, with every myth and legend, there's truth. And I've spent enough time around these people to understand that when you get to the right elder, you can learn so much. Now, about bringing somebody back and placing them to be found, I've said this all along, that there's some lessons here to be learned. There's some reason that the people are brought back and placed right where they are. Is it to soothe the need of humans to find their lost relative because they know that that will just nag at us for a lifetime? Or is it some other reason? Let's align that with mutilated animals, specifically cows. This is going on right now in Eastern Oregon. It's been happening for probably 75 or 80 years, maybe longer. Sometimes I heard a story and I saw a story about 110 years old, had to do with mutilated animals. Now the question I have for you is, if the animals are mutilated at another location, they're taken from one pasture, mutilated and brought back, and obviously they're not mutilated at the location because there's no blood or organs found, what's the point in bringing them back? What's the message that they're trying to send? Because it is a message. They're trying to either tell us, hey, we can do this at our whim and you'll never know. Are they trying to tell us something about that specific creature that was mutilated? Or is there some overlying issue that we truly don't understand? Rocks keep falling off that hillside over here. Keeping my eye on it. But those are the alignments. And some of the stories I'm going to talk to you today bring some of this home a little bit and make you think. It's another story that was sent to me. I want to share with you an experience I had at Lake Isabella in California in the late 80s. My then boyfriend was an avid outdoorsman, climber, hunter, and enduro rider. We were both volunteers in our home country's search and rescue team. By the way, I'm getting a lot of that. I'm getting a lot of responses and emails from search and rescue folks. I appreciate that. And many of you who have read the hundreds, maybe thousands of search and rescue people who have read my books understand there's something serious here. And thank you for getting back to me and talking to me about it. So anyhow, on a spur of the moment, we decided to go camping, hooked up the trailer and took off. We ended up at Lake Isabella. I couldn't tell you exactly where. We arrived well into the night, perhaps around midnight. Just so you know, Lake Isabella is in the southern part of the Sierras near Kings County National Park, right next to Sequoia National Park, in an area with many disappearances. We arrived well into the night, perhaps around midnight. It was very dark. We found an isolated spot that looked good, and we backed our trailer into a place of satisfaction. As soon as my boyfriend turned off the ignition, the back of the truck and trailer started sinking into the ground and spinning counterclockwise. Okay, let me read that again. As soon as he turned off the ignition, the back of the truck and trailer started sinking into the ground and spinning counterclockwise. At the same time, the stars started streaking as if in a long exposure photo. I looked over him and said, "Do you feel that?" He swore and started the engine. As soon as the engine turned over, everything returned to normal. He turned it off and the same thing happened. Needless to say, we abandoned that spot and found another place to stay that night. We went home the next morning. A couple of years ago, my dad passed and that old boyfriend stopped by to give his condolences. I brought up the Isabella incident and he had the exact same memory. Neither of us have a good explanation. Anyway, not a missing person, but I wonder what could have happened during our stay at that spot. Oh yeah, it was at Kings County National Park, in case you know. Yeah, and you could look it up, Lake Isabella. I've never heard that story before. And very odd, to say the least. So, yeah. Okay, the third email. I'll try to keep this short if I can. It wasn't short, but... And by the way, if you write to me, I greatly appreciate it if you keep your thoughts to a paragraph or two short. And just give me the outline of what you want to talk about. And if it's something we're interested in or something we're looking at, I'll get back to you and ask you to explain more. And that way I can get through all of them. I probably have 1,000 emails I haven't even touched. So, and the long ones get pushed to the back of the pack because I just don't have the time to get to them. I'm going to try to keep this short if I can. I want to apologize for my last email, and I was not aware of your son and your loss at that point. I was new to your channel and realized after that the fact that I am saddened and very grieved for your loss, and I want to send you my deepest compassion. Hope you find peace in your loss. I hope I do too. I researched near-death experiences and the soul spirit and who and what we truly are and why we are here. So, why are we here? You know, with Ben's loss, it's made me reflect on life in general, and I'm sure a lot of people do this, but we aren't here to get up every day, sit in traffic for an hour, go to work, sit in some type of line, assemble something and go home, eat dinner, watch the convorted news, go to sleep, wake up, and go through it again for 5 days in a row, being miserable. I don't believe that's life. But why are we on this earth? Ponder that for a second. Why were we put here? And if we were put here for a reason, what's that overarching reason? Is it to wear down the earth slowly? Is it to destroy it? Is it to be the people that preserve this for generations to come? But why? Are we to grow a species that goes to another planet? There's all these things that have gone through my mind in the last couple months. And yeah, this guy researches near-death experience. I see patterns of how NDEs, near-death experiences, relate to the frequency and energy of what we see with vortexes or magnetic anomalies. So many people that I have found with their experience is that people don't die, but continue to the next phase of reality, so to speak. I think that perception is reality when it comes to how people view and contrast spirituality and the physical. It is apparent to me that this realm we are in is more than meets the eye. It is more spiritual in nature, but it is off the frequency charts, like a higher level reality that is here, just beyond our ability to perceive. So, our ability to perceive. Again, I've talked about this before, but when you go into an area and you just feel something staring at you, well, that's perception, but it's something that we don't recognize an ability for. So what tells you? And you turn around, I've had other people say, I turn around, there's a deer or there's a mountain lion staring at me. I was intrigued by the interview you had with Joe at the Montana Vortex and how he relates to the UFO, ETs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and physicality. It's not too far from spirituality. These are all related, and I saw the ins before I stumbled onto your work and the missing people. I confess that I went into a bit of a depression when I was diving deep into your channel and documentaries. I've spent a good 30 hours listening to you and your son's work. Quite frankly, I think you are getting into some forbidden topics. I've heard this before. This is a higher order, and that is some sort of principality of sorts that is operating from the other side of the veil. You are onto something with what you are exposing. It makes me think of that guy that went into a trance and began to walk into a lake to drown himself. I talked about that in another video. The same thing can happen to an NDE, in my opinion. I think this is a dark order and a light order that you must... I think is a dark order and a light order that you might consider Satan and God. But it isn't so simple to me. I think this is a vast topic. I appreciate you as a frontline worker on the cause. Forgive me for the long email. Heard this many times before. And I've had psychics, spiritualists write to me, some of them with some fascinating things. I've lost a couple of those emails, so you send me an email before about some psychic thoughts about Ben, send it to me again. But I've had people tell me that since they couldn't get to me, they got to Ben. I've heard that. That they can't get to me, they'll get to a family member. I've heard that. And I've had people say, well, we've got to say prayers and we've got to do certain things to protect ourselves. And I understand all that. And I practice a lot of that stuff. And you might say, well, you know, maybe I'm afraid, or I think, like I've said, there's something to all of this. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to get hurt. So those are the stories for today. The emails. I'm going to tell you about 2 disappearances. Both of them are related in my mind, and both of them are super key to the overall process of missing people and our understanding. 2 cases that I've written about, that nobody has ever written back to me about. And I think a lot of people gloss over these. Oh yeah, you know, whatever. And they focus on, oh, it must be a Bigfoot. Oh, it must be this. And I get this so much, it's just hilarious. But the first case involves a young girl, 3 years old, named Gloria Hood, H-O-O-D. disappeared November 10th, 1936 at 3 p.m. in a place called Newton, Kansas. Right down that strip of the middle of the United States, there's almost nobody missing. She is one. Now, just so you know, this is Newton up here. This is Wichita. Where she disappeared is just south at a place called the Dewey School. Now, there's a place on the map that says Dewey School when you look at Google Maps. It's about 4 miles south from where the Newton's city limits were. So it's not where the Dewey School is on the Google map, though. So she was 3 years old, and this is our third case in Kansas. Most of them are far on the eastern side of the state. So the home sits about 4 homes south of the furthest southern point in Newton. And her dad was a firefighter, and her mom at about 2:30 to 3 that day on November 10th, she put her 2 kids and Gloria to bed to take a nap, and she went out to run errands. Dad was still home, asleep. She comes back, she put the kids to bed. She came back about 2:15 or 2:30, right in that time frame. She came home to find the front gate open and the front door open. Now remember, Gloria was only 3 years old. There's some question whether she could unlock the door and even get out of the house. But the mom searches the area, doesn't see anything, doesn't hear anything, yells out, wakes the husband right away, wakes all the kids, calls neighbors, and very quickly there's a massive search underway. Massive. Law enforcement gets there and it gets bigger quick. Thousands of people from throughout Kansas walked at 20 and 30 foot intervals through all of the fields, through all of the open space in that whole area. Didn't find anything, didn't see anything, nothing. They got frustrated. Now, on November 18th, a truck driver was driving his route from Wichita and came across a scene in a field near that school, about 4 miles from the parents' home. And as he's driving by, he looks out in the field, and it's a plowed field, wide open. And out there he sees a glint of something. He thought maybe it was blonde hair. So he stops the truck, and he knew a girl was missing, and he walks out to the field. Other people stop too, and they find Gloria there in the field. Now, thinking about this for a second, is that it had been a week. And during that week, people had walked through that field. In fact, the rancher that plowed that field had gone through it. And he said, no, there was nothing there. So this was on US Highway 81, about 3.5, 4 miles south of Newton, 50 yards from the road. And it bothered everybody that they found the body in that location. Because how could Gloria get to that point? She'd have to cross multiple roads. She would have had to have been in the public spectrum for at least 2 days, because the coroner said she was alive at least 2 days after she disappeared. Now that's troublesome, because there were thousands of people looking for her. How did she manage to not be seen by all of these individuals? Now, there's other parts of this that are also bothersome, to say the least. She was missing shoes, stockings. She had scratches all over her body. And the coroner said that she had pneumonia and she had exposure. And also she had a broken jaw. So think about it. How does a little girl get a broken jaw in a plowed field? Did she get it by falling? No, they found some blood on her cheek where she had been bleeding from the break. The coroner stated she did not get that by falling in that field. So if she didn't get that by falling in that field, how did she get the broken jaw? Now, they said that in that immediate area, they did see some footprints of hers only, nobody else. Now, folks, I've written other stories about other kids being found in fields with broken bones. And everybody tries to take the story and fit it into a story that makes sense. And in this instance, if that girl was kidnapped, there is no way in heck a suspect is going to stop on the side of the road, carry her body 50 yards into the middle of the field, drop her off and leave, or throw her and leave. Nope, not going to happen. Too much of an opportunity to be seen. When you could drive up to a creek where there's lots of trees and foliage and throw her over a bridge into a creek, nobody'd ever see her. No, nobody put her in that field contextually like you and me did that. That didn't happen. Some way she got into that field. Some way she managed not to be seen for days. And again, a farmer went through the field after she disappeared and said she wasn't there. So at some point in the 7 to 8 days she was gone, she eventually made it to that location. But how? That's the question. But the real key is her broken jaw. Why do I say that? Because when kids, first of all, kids have very pliable bones, very pliable bones. It's hard to break a kid's bone, especially a jawbone. And if she was dropped, then if she dropped and hit her face on a rock or something, that could have broke her bone, broke her jaw. But she didn't break it by just falling. And you got to keep that thought, okay? Keep that thought. Let me see if I got more pictures for you here. Okay, second case. Okay, let me show you a picture here. So, this is the man that found Rita in the field, the truck driver. These are the men that are surrounding the body in the field. And you can see the rows that were plowed. There's the arrow where the body was, but they didn't show it. And this is the school in the field where the body was found. I never could find a photo of her, but that's case number 1. Case number 2, Rita Lentz, 3 years old. And this occurred in Richmond Township, Ohio. Now, this is Richmond Township. This is the Pennsylvania border. This is Lake Erie. This is Ashtabula, Ohio. The proximity to the lake is important. Also to another big lake. Water's everywhere. So, November 22nd, 1934, North Richmond Township on the Pennsylvania border, 12 miles from Lake Erie. Small farm. Rita's playing in the yard with her German Shepherd. Her mom checked on her at noon. They lived on a farm, ranch. Checks on her 15 minutes later, and the dog named Buddy is gone. Mom looks around, can't see anything, look a long ways on a farm, nothing. Called neighbors, dozens start searching. Rita's dad lived in a city called Connaught. And they were separated, but the dad lived on the farm, or lived outside and commuted into work. He came back into the farm and they started looking for the daughter. Pretty soon they get everybody looking for the daughter. And quite quickly, the entire community and people from as far as 100 miles away are searching. And they search everywhere. And a day and a half after she disappears, Buddy, the German Shepherd, comes back. And it had rained the night before, yet Buddy was dry. And that was suspicious to everybody, including the parents, because they knew that dog would always stay with their daughter. So, here's this picture I want to show you. This is a picture of Rita. just before she disappeared. 3 years old. So, law enforcement spent days massively searching everywhere. Never found anything. Now, 3 months later, 3 months after she disappears, some guys on a ranch farm about 2 miles away and about 300 feet from a barn see something in a mud puddle. And they go down there, and it's Rita Lentz's body. And both these farmhands said, that wasn't there just the other day, because we've been going through this area every day. We've never seen this. So the coroner comes out and picks up the body, and right away, so it's the location from Rita's house is 2 air miles. And again, I've always said you don't walk air miles, you walk ground miles. 2 air miles could equal 4 to 6 regular miles. So the coroner says that body has not been out in the elements for 3 months. And in fact, the coroner said, we're not sure how long she's been dead, but it's been preserved somehow for some period of time. The coroner couldn't determine the cause of death. Now, she was missing a shoe, some stockings, and a shirt. And this threw this country into a turmoil. And there was innuendos that the mom killed her. There were innuendos that the dad killed her. There was no evidence any of that happened. But they were all looking for answers to a complex equation. It had rained the night she disappeared. There was water everywhere. The coroner never could determine the cause of death. She was missing clothing. Now, folks, when you look at this case, she had scratches over her body, just like the other girls I've written about. When you look at just this case from a minute level, from just that city level, I understand why the police did what they did. When you look at it from a macro level, from something I'm doing, it all starts to make sense. I'll say it again. In this case as well, there was no way a suspect in a murder is going to drop that body where they did in that ranch farmland, 300 feet from a barn, in plain view from everyone who works and lives there. No way. And nobody who lives at that location would do that because they don't want to point suspect at themselves if they did it. So get that out of your head. Question is, how long was Rita there? That's troublesome. And then if she wasn't there, like she wasn't the whole time, where was she? Now, the one thing I always have questions about on these cases is how the clothing sat on the victim. When there's really sharp investigators and coroners, they'll realize that the clothing maybe wasn't on just right. Maybe things were on a little crooked. Maybe it appeared as though somebody put the clothes on for him. I have my suspicions about this. But in this case, there was never anything said about tracks around the pond or this little puddle of water. But again, right in the middle of the water, that's where they found her, in this puddle. That, to me, is so identifiable as part of these cases. Again, when you put somebody in water, they immediately get bacteria all over their body. It immediately starts washing off evidence. It contaminates the body, makes it very hard to work with. Water ages a body at a different rate than air elements. There's a lot of things to be understood. Now, I know I'm going to get people say, oh, you know, you're just hyping this and there's really nothing to this. Again, if you read one case, one time, I get it. If I give you 50 cases that are just like this, and you start to pay attention to the facts, you're going to start to see that something very unusual is happening. Both of the girls I gave you today, 3 years old. There's something about that magical age between 2 and 5. I've actually talked to a geneticist about this. And they have stated that your DNA, when you're that young, is so pure and so clean and so uncontaminated. It has so few things that have attacked the system that it's at a purity stage. Is there something about that we don't understand? I don't know. But to me, it's starting to become more evident that when you look at these cases, and even when I looked at them a couple years ago, there really was no other answer other than they were put there by something, somewhere, somehow. But they didn't get there on their own. And a little 3-year-old girl isn't going to walk 4, 5, 6 miles, find the nearest puddle in November, and jump in the middle of it when it's freezing cold out. No, that's not going to happen. So, anyhow, one of my next videos coming up is going to be an interview with a friend, and he's a really good guy. And some people have made fun of him in the past, and keep your negative comments to yourself. I've enjoyed being around this individual, and he's been in that Bigfoot community for a long time. He's one of the very few people I'll associate with, because I despise individuals that talk negatively about others and badmouth each other just to get yourself ahead. I tried to make it a practice many years ago. Keep my opinions about others to myself. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But there's a lot of people in that Bigfoot community that I wouldn't invite to dinner. This guy, I actually invited him to one of our conferences in Colorado. And at our conferences, we always had a big dinner Saturday night for all the conference speakers and the organizers. And it was like a buffet style dinner. And one of the best comments I had from speakers was that dinner they had the most fun at, and it was the most relaxing, and they got to actually talk to other people in their world. And when this guy came at the end, he said, "Dave, that was so much fun." So, in the conference, you guys made it fun for them too, the people that came. I appreciate that. So look for that video coming up, and the description under this video will have all the contact points for me, has a contact point for our Bigfoot site and for our store and the missing person website. Please don't try to convolute the two, Bigfoot and missing people. Just because I did Bigfoot once in my life, don't think I've ever tried to wash that over to this. And if you've read the books, you know you're not going to see it in those missing person books. I respect the families of missing people too much to try to fabricate a stupid story like that and force that down their throat. I'm not going to do it. So, thank you again for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up, and please check your subscription to make sure you're still subscribed. I've had hundreds of people in the last couple of weeks say, "Hey, I keep getting unsubscribed." So please make sure you're subscribed and a thumbs up. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you soon.